What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is someone who literally grew up in the hospitality industry. Her mission is to build things that last and create places with soul and purpose. She is responsible for some of the most iconic hotels in New England and beyond, including the Red Lion Inn, Hammett's, Canoe Place in the Hamptons, and Porches Inn, among others. The oldest hotel is 250 years old, celebrating their 250th anniversary this year, and the newest is 8 months old. They're all iconic and they're all from different eras. She's the founder and CEO at Main Street Hospitality Group. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Eustis. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Dan. It's so nice to be here. After a long time of trying, I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Well, I'm so glad we made it happen too. And I gotta say, of the 100+ guests that I've had on, um, I know most of them really well, but I would say a few of them I've actually had dinner in their homes. So I would like
Mhm.
to say that you are one of those few. Um, I really love that because I've seen a whole different side of hospitality from you and your family, and it's just cool to have that really deeper personal relationship. So thank you, and I just wanted to give context for everyone as we're talking that we know each other really well.
Mhm. Well, it's fun to think that hospitality is actually what you do in your house when you have people over for dinner. At
Totally.
its most fundamental, right? And we love that. And when I'm working with our teams and talking about it, I actually talk about that a lot. Thinking about how you want people to feel when they are in your home.
Uh,
So
100%. Well, and I think that's a really incredible segue into like the first question that I ask everyone. But based on that and kind of teeing it up perfectly for the segue, like how do you define hospitality?
I define it in a way that focuses on belonging and connection. And I think that when a real sense of belonging is present throughout an experience, a sense of connection, of welcome, that is when true hospitality is happening. And it may be a little harder to measure, but it is the essence of it's the product that we are creating beyond heads and beds and delicious food, and it's the core of what we do.
I love how you say it's hard to measure because I'm sure there's ways to quantify what it is, but to me, it's something that you really feel, right?
Mhm.
And I'd love to actually peel back on that a little bit based on how it is hard to measure. How do you know, or is it through feedback? Like, how do you guys try your best to measure how you're delivering hospitality to others throughout all of your properties?
Yeah. Well, I think I suppose I should retract some of that because it is measurable to some degree. It's measurable through what people say, whether it's inside the hotel anecdotally, whether it's a written review, whether it is to other people. And I picked this up from our mutual friend Danny Meyer very early on. When people rave, it's because they felt amazing. Yes, the food might be incredible. Yes, the sheets might be incredible. But really, it was because of the feeling that they took away. And so, return visits, reviews are great, and we can all track our progress around guest feedback. But when people come back over and over again and they build a relationship with our places, which I could throw some statistics out there, but the return rates are incredibly high. That's when I know that it's working
Yeah.
because people have so many choices now. We are all spending our hard-earned working capital in different ways, and the fact that people choose us over and over and over again to such a high degree indicates that there's some feeling that they get when they're here. And so those are probably the most measurable aspects of what we do. Otherwise, it's you know
Right.
it,
So I love that. Okay, but at at its core, there's some feeling that gets them to come back over and over.
Hmm.
And what
Hmm.
I think so incredible about the company that you've built is, how do you deliver that level of hospitality and get them to come back over and over with such varied properties, right? So the Red Lion Inn is celebrating its 250th anniversary. It's also like, I don't know, a mile or two from where my mom lives. So I've gone there so
Hmm.
many times and sat out on the front porch, um, and had dinner in there, and I've stayed there a bunch of times, all the way to Canoe Place out in the Hamptons, which is I think 8 months old or so, 8 or 9 months old. How do you? It's such a different type of guest that's coming to all of these places. How do you deliver hospitality to these varied properties and from different time periods?
I know. Well, it's not it's not easy. It's not a straight line for sure. That being said, the and again, I bear no I take no original credit for these ideas, but hire hard, train hard, define who we are and what our and what the culture of hospitality is in our company. So I just came back from 3 days of training. I wouldn't even call it training. I would call it roundtable hospitality leadership discussions with four of our different properties. And this is sort of now what I do mostly, and I love it because we have a great structured kind of program around the balance and the difference between hospitality and service, the kinds of ways we think about empathy and generosity in our businesses. You know, everyone else has written books about it, Will Guidara and Danny, and so we just take all of that and we try to actually bring it to life. You know, many of our colleagues in the business, Dan, I feel like you and I've known each other for almost 10 years probably, and they've done amazing things building brands. We are not building a brand of hotels that we're rolling out across the world, right? We are building a brand of hospitality that we're rolling out across some geographical area. I won't say the world, I don't know yet,
A
but
swath of the world.
a corner of the world. And so you may not know that you're in a Main Street hospitality property because you see a big sign that says that. But what we hope, if we really do our jobs right, is that you know because you feel a deep sense of connection, a sense of character, a sense of knowing where you are, a place that matters to the community that it's in, um, a feeling of authentic kind of generosity and attention to detail. And this is what everybody's trying to do. It's not revolutionary,
Yeah.
but there's something that we try to unlock that's a little bit more personal and a little bit more. And frankly, I just had 2 days of working with the teams to say how are we taking it to the next level. And I do think Will Gadara and his new
Unreasonable
book.
hospitality. Hey, Will, if you're watching,
Hey
we she
Will,
just
shout out to Will and
just
shout
held the
out to
book up.
Danny, the
Yeah.
OG, because it gives it language. It gives people a framework to think about how to operationalize their natural instincts for generosity.
Okay, so when I hear you say that you want to take your hospitality to the next level and you're challenging your teams who you've hired hard, right? And they're
Hmm.
really working on defining who they are, why they're doing what they're doing at that specific property. Is there a good example from one of your properties that are so varied from 8 months to 250 years old, um, that you could share what it was like before to getting it to the next level, right? What was that change, and like, how do people feel when they're experiencing it and delivering it?
I'm contemplating for a second. I think probably what one that was very evident yesterday when I was doing a session with our team at Hammett's Hotel in Newport, which is coming on its third anniversary.
Oh, it opened at a
So
great time too. Like,
June 2020 was
oh my
perfect.
gosh, wow.
Um, and the whole story of how the hotel came to be and how it got done and our partners are amazing. The whole thing is an incredible story in and of itself. But we created with these talented people something from nothing. There was a parking lot there. And there was a lot of controversy around this last open spot of waterfront on the downtown Newport, but we got it built. We got it open, and our general manager, who's been there since day one, and many of her team who have been there since day one, where normally there's a lot of turnover in the first year, and yeah, there's been incredible consistency. And it's incredible yesterday to see the pride. And we went around the table. We really talked about, what are you most proud of? What have we accomplished here? And it was interesting to hear them say, not that we've hit the budget and we've made so much profit and we've done all these things, but that we, meaning this is coming from them, have created a place that people, both transient and travelers and community, now have as an asset for them that they never had before. And it was interesting that they felt really part of the making of the whole thing and the success of the whole thing. And I think the training that we did from the very beginning, which is this kind of program that I'm talking about, and we do it in a formal way, we do it in an informal way. It's part of every morning stand up. And our general manager, who I think when she first started was sort of trained in a Marriott mindset, which is a great mindset to be in, but we had to deprogram her a little bit, get her more open to um, the spontaneous and very kind of empathy driven kind of generosity that we think that we feel is more our style of hospitality. And I could that you asked me an example. I can see her now 3 years later, leading her teams and talking about this in a way that was not the way that it was on her day one. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So she's owning it, which is incredible.
I do know what you mean. And as you're saying it, and hearing you say just this kind of spontaneous empathy and the deprogramming, I think that, and that's actually where I first met you at Independent Lodging Congress on a rooftop at,
Hmm.
I forget what hotel it was
Where
in,
were we at?
I think it was
Yeah, New
Brooklyn.
York.
It was in
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Um, but, and, but I think that's also what's so wonderful about all of your properties too. They're like truly independent. Yeah, your Main Street hospitality, but each one has its own specific flavor and feeling, and it is so varied, and all of your teams are there, and I can say
Hmm.
firsthand from lots of experience that you really do put your teams first, and I get that, and I've seen it, I've experienced it.
Well,
um
our COVID experiment that we did together
yes.
was amazing. But you asked me a question that I didn't really answer, which was how we thread this through all these diverse
Hmm.
properties. And it was so interesting because also 2 days ago, we did a session like this with two different teams up in North Adams, Massachusetts. So Porches,
Porches,
which
yeah.
is a beautiful award-winning property that we've been running for 20 years, and then Hotel Downstreet, which is just relaunching in 2 weeks
Oh.
in North Adams as a renovated Holiday Inn. Um, and it's just on the other side of Mass MoCA, which is this incredible contemporary art museum that you know. And so we did a session yesterday or 2 days ago with both teams.
Hmm.
And Porches is a high end boutique, high character, high ADRs on the weekends place that
Hmm.
everybody can't afford, but is amazing. And then Hotel Downstreet is a cool, art driven, functional, lean hotel that is half or less the price of an average night than Porches, right?
Mm.
And I had both teams in the room, and we're talking about the same quality of hospitality. It doesn't matter if you're spending $120 a night or $420 a night, right? And
Hmm.
so that I think that went to the crux of your question, which is it the hospitality isn't better or worse depending on the price or the level of luxury of a hotel.
Mm.
And we're training for that to be high quality across the board, if that makes sense. We might have more amenities and throw more glasses of champagne at people at Canoe Place than we do at Hotel Downstreet, but the ethos is the same. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh, it does, because ultimately it's about people, and if you're coaching, and if you're really taking that culture that you have established through Main Street Hospitality of putting people first, that will transcend every type of property, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you might not have all the bells and whistles at one versus the other, but it's really, it's, I think it's how you approach people with an open heart.
Well, that's a nice way to say it. And I think that this may sound controversial. Maybe it's not meant to be, but I think a lot of folks are afraid, kind of in our business,
Hmm.
afraid to be wrong, afraid to make a mistake, afraid to get in trouble, afraid of breaking the SOP. So my team gets really annoyed with me because I go into these meetings and I'm like, I know we have SOPs, but your job is to break them.
Yeah,
And
totally.
of course, I'm being somewhat extreme, but the worst thing in a hospitality interaction is a young employee who maybe is not sure of their scope of authority. Right?
Hmm.
It's normal. It's normal. But what we're trying to do is empower and give everyone, whether you're a housekeeper or a general manager, an ability to create a great experience without having to go ask somebody.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 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 it's easier said than done in some ways because people come with that built-in sense of somebody's got to tell me what to do, and I'm afraid of making a mistake or being wrong. So we're trying to turn that upside down
Yeah.
and build a higher level of empowerment, which I think then spills over to a guest experience in a really powerful way.
As you're saying it, I'm thinking I had a previous guest on early on named John DeJulius, who's like a customer service guru. He's written books on it, he
Mm-hmm.
speaks on it, he holds conferences, but he regarding SOPs and protocols or procedures, he he's like, okay, it's good to have those. So like what you're saying, but really you can't call them that. They have to be guidelines, right? Because this is like the standard by which we're trying to do, but when you get out to the margins of any situation,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have like a hard edge. You have to be able to take a foot or a full step outside of that checkbox.
You really do, and it's hard because we're trying to work within a flexible framework, and we're dealing with human beings,
Yeah.
hundreds of them every day. And one of the things that I was laughing with the team yesterday because it can come down to language,
Hmm.
and it can come down to your ability to be present in the moment, dealing with a situation that needs where you may not be able to provide what someone wants, which happens to us every day. And so we were laughing yesterday about trying to banish the word unfortunately from our vocabulary.
How's it going?
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It is such a reflex when someone comes up to the front desk or they want something and we can't provide it. The reflex is to say, "Oh, I mean, we're trying to be nice. Oh, unfortunately, we're sold out. Unfortunately, we don't can't do that." So, but it sets up a negative vibe right away. And
Totally.
so what we're just like honing in on this thing and trying to not say, try it, test yourself.
It's really
Try
difficult.
try not to
As you're
say
speaking,
unfortunately.
I'm like playing through scenarios where I'm picturing a guest coming up. They want a better view or something, and everything's full, and you just like, unfortunately, I'm so sorry, but unfortunately, so it's
I
like
know.
it
So
really forces a different direction.
well it does because what we want to do with that, and again, this is not an original idea, but to say, I wish I could. Oh man, I wish I really could. I can imagine how much you would like to have that thing I can't
Yes.
give you, right? And give me a minute. Let me think about something else that maybe we could do to amplify your experience or to add something on or to, just unfortunately shuts it down and kind of makes you feel stupid as a guest. It really does.
Yeah.
Try it out.
Well, because in a way,
So
it's
we're just
like,
these are the fun things that we try to work on.
yeah, because you're saying, I wish I could. It's almost like you're putting yourself on their side immediately, but then there's like this impossible thing that can't happen. So it almost forces like empathetic understanding from the receiver of the bad news. Wow, that's pretty cool. I know you said you said that this is not your idea, or I may have heard this. I've never heard this before. This is really awesome.
This is if you read Setting the Table and go back to this concept of letting people know you're on their side.
Hmm.
That is the key. And that can diffuse a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and a lot of anxiety. Um, and I think now more than ever, where people have those things in higher proportions, it seems that way anyway.
Hmm.
We're all just like a little more stressed out. And when someone's on your side and essentially acting as an agent and saying, I'm here to help you.
Hmm.
I have limited tools at my disposal, but you know what? Together, I bet we can figure something out. There's always a way.
Yeah.
So that's what we train for. honestly. And you leave, even if you leave having said your piece but not getting the room that you wanted, you leave with a feeling like, wait a minute, they were with me, and I'll come back and we'll try it again some other time. Anyway, you get my
I
point.
totally get it.
Um,
Hey, I want to go. You when you were referring to the creation of Hammets, you said it was an incredible story, right? But I also think that you have an incredible story for how you came to be where you are, because so many of the people that I speak with, it's like it was almost like an accidental thing that happened. It wasn't a planned thing. And I know you were in living, like, walk us through your story, because like I know you were in Paris, you were working in fashion, and then here you come back and you start this amazing company with and you've grown and grown, and like, so like, how did you find your way to where you're sitting right now, and like, what's your vision for what you're seeing in the future?
well, those are two pieces. I'll try to um, articulate them separately and chronologically, maybe, Dan. Okay, but again, when you started the podcast by saying I grew up in hospitality, I really did. I mean, I started. My father moved up to the Berkshires when we were really little from Philadelphia, and started a whole extended family that included the Red Lion Inn, and it was the place where good things happened, and we gathered and we had family dinners, and then we started working here. We were 14, and my kids are down there doing the same thing. But it got into our bones, right? It was just part of how we learned how to work, how we learned to work with people, how we learned how to manage um, priorities and conflict, and all of those skills I have put to good use throughout my entire career.
Hmm.
So for people out there, put your kids to work in hospitality. It pays off later. And but then I had a calling. I don't know where it came from, but I really wanted to explore the apparel industry, and so I did, and jumped into New York City and did over 25 years of chapters with Ralph Lauren and Gap Inc. and limited brands, and then an opportunity to move to Paris, which we jumped at. Um, all through that time, our family business was evolving, and it was
Hmm.
not it was not primarily hospitality. It was primarily retail, home furnishings, and hospitality was a little bit of a sideline, but an important one. And I could see the business evolving, the generations evolving, and they were really inclusive of us as the third generation, or G3 as we call ourselves.
Mm.
And no one was pressured to come back in the business. There was always an opportunity if you had the skills and if there was a job. So it was not a shoe-in, right? But around 2011, we were in Paris, and my grandfather passed away, and came back and looked around and really had like a profound moment. And then one of those ahas, like that there was so much that had been created over the kind of generationally, in goodwill, in investment in the community, in business, and that I kind of looked around and wondered who on G3 was going to step up to maybe steward whatever this would become, right? And that was it. And I just decided right then, you know. And we moved back in 2012 with my husband and the two boys who you've met,
Hmm.
um, settled in Great Barrington.
Who are now young men.
They are now young men. One is at UMass Eisenberg in the hospitality program.
Oh.
Um, so it was not. It was a very organic. I think it was written. I think it was written before. I know I sound like I'm doing too many gummies. I'm telling you, it was written before. It really, I think it was. So it sort of made sense, and we dug in. It was a big lifestyle change. I had no idea what I was doing, Dan.
Mm.
I mean, don't tell too many people that. But I really, I wasn't I didn't have a Starwood background. I didn't have but I had 20 years of executive management and leadership at these big companies, just selling something different,
Yep.
right? And the correlations between retail and brand, I learned a lot about brand integrity at all of these different places, especially at Ralph Lauren,
Mm.
where that's really sacred, and the commitment you make to it is what draws people to you. So you don't have to follow other people. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? So
Yeah.
so I've tried to bring all that to bear, and made a ton of mistakes, and wasn't sure year after year if this whole thing was going to fly, but we saw that there was enough interest in what we were doing at the Red Lion and Porches in terms of our style, our approach, our vibe, and others started to invite us to do projects. And then I looked around and thought, wait a minute, we need a company.
Hmm.
We need to actually have some infrastructure. And so in 2014, we formed Main Street and started to build revenue management, HR, accounting, marketing, and we had these functionalities within the Red Line, but it had to go higher and more horizontal to be able to provide it. Um, and so fast forward 10 years, we have 9 properties going on 10, going on more, and different things in the pipeline, but a much more rigorous. Um, we have to be opportunistic in the beginning,
Yeah.
obviously, but all the properties made sense in their own way. So now
Hmm.
we can be more specific about the projects we're doing, the people we're working with, and it's getting pretty exciting. My leadership team is amazing. Greta Kipp just got promoted to COO. Scott Williams is VP of Marketing and amazing HR and finance. So I think we're primed for a couple incredible, a great growth period right now.
Yeah, and then so as you're saying that, I'm just going back to when we first met 10 years ago, and it made me remember. I was just so amazed. I was like, "Whoa, you're from Great Barrington and the Red Lion Inn. I love that place. Like my mom's lived up there for 20 years." And I was just so I remember talking to you and just being so surprised that I don't know why more people from the New York area don't go to the Berkshires more, because there's so much to offer, especially the younger set. They're heading out to the Hamptons or doing whatever. But I just feel like since that moment, you've branched out so much beyond that area and grown so much. It's just like it's a cool story to have seen you shortly after the starting of Main Street Hospitality and then on your path forward.
Well, and I think ILC, let's give a shout out to Andrew and the team at ILC because I think they connected us early on, and I can credit some of my most rewarding relationships in hospitality through that, the Independent Lodging Congress. And I think we have to remember where our roots are. I guess I'm sitting in my grandmother's office right now, which we which was her office at the very beginning at the Red Lion on the 3rd floor. We just renovated our offices to be a little more polished and keeping up with who we are. But we're very humble. We're not. I'd often thought, wow, we want to be a cool company. We need a really cool loft and blah blah blah, and we need to spend a bunch of money. And then I looked around. I thought, being here in our family offices and running our hospitality company out of a hotel, not a corporate headquarters, is something I never want to change because when I'm off of a budget meeting or a podcast, I can get up, I can walk downstairs, I can interact with guests, we can test things out, we can sort of remember why we're doing this. And so Stockbridge is not the global epicenter, but it doesn't matter. And COVID and Zoom kind of changed that. And we have a
Yeah.
team now who's living all over New England. We're all here together a couple days a week, maybe even one, and it really feels good to stay true to our roots. We are from the Berkshires. We're going to continue to invest in the Berkshires, but we've seen that the communities, whether it's Newport or Hampton Bays or North Adams or Chesapeake Island, kind of bringing what we do, which is a community-minded way of thinking about hospitality.
Mm.
Um, it's really paying off, and even asset managers are listening to me when I talk about love and empathy in what we do. Where before they're like, whatever, that's the soft stuff. But it makes money too, which is
Yeah.
great.
So, and then to see how you started the Main Street Hospitality, I guess within the past 10 years
Yeah.
yeah,
So
10 years,
next year will
11
be
years
10
ago, or
years.
10 years,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you've expanded beyond your original footprint through up to G3, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
3G,
Mm-hmm.
G3,
G3.
G3. Um, where do you see taking, like, what, I guess not so much where you see maybe you'll answer it in there, but like what's exciting you the most as you look forward on your strategic roadmap?
Mm. Well, what's exciting is um, we've gotten, this year actually is a bit of a, we have three new properties that we're opening that are all existing. They just have to get open for the summer. Amazing one in Canada for a great partner who we've known and loved for 20 years, in the Muskoka Lakes.
Oh, I
One in
love it up there.
Chebeague Island Inn with the Prentice Group, which is a beautiful Maine property off the coast of Portland, and then a restaurant in Newport that is also owned by someone who's already a partner. So this year's kind of theme, if you will, has been to expand our existing partnerships, because the learning curve on new relationships and kind of brand new teams, although we love it, it takes more time and energy to really get into a kind of flow with a new owner, with a new partner, with a new development team. So this year has been great on that level.
Mm,
What we have in the pipeline and what I'm excited about um, are perhaps expanded partnerships that involve more than one hotel at a time, because that's also the bespoke nature of what we do is great, but it it's a little less scalable always
hmm.
to kind of go one by one. So some opportunities we're looking at in terms of kind of multi-property partnerships,
Great.
which gets me excited. We're still very northeast and east coast based at the moment, and frankly, who knows? We at the moment we can get to our properties within within 3 to 5 hours, and there's something about that immediacy that I like. So we're not, and some of my amazing colleagues in the business are all over the South and out to California. We're staying pretty focused. We feel like there's a lot to do on the East Coast.
Something you said is resonating with me. It's just kind of expanding your existing partners, right? And it's like it's as if you've already struck gold with them, right? You're already delighting each other.
Totally.
You're working well, and it's
That's
like,
a great way to say
okay,
it. Yeah.
so if I've already struck gold there, well, there's got to be another vein of gold in there. So let's dig another mine in there and see how we can keep growing together.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it, Mr. Ryan. The thing I'll share, and I maybe I've already said this to you, but my stepmom Nancy, who was a 2G at the Red Lion Inn, second generation, she between the ages of 65 and 70, she walked across America. I
Whoa.
don't know if I ever told you
No,
that.
I had no
She
idea.
walked.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds
And she
like a
she
dream
set out on
trip.
this whole, yeah, well, took 5 years because she would walk for a period of time and then she would come home and then she would go back. NancyTakesAHike.com. You can check it out. But um, the reason that I brought it up was why. Oh, I went out to Omaha, Nebraska to see her, and we walked for a little while together. And in Omaha, as I was coming back, I was in the airport and I picked up a book on Warren Buffett, right? Because there was a whole bookstore about Warren Buffett,
Yep.
and
Of course.
and I just was picking up on these Warren Buffett things, right? And this was almost 10 years ago, and people are always asking him like, how do you do these billion-dollar deals on a handshake? Like, how do you decide, right? And everybody wants a piece of his brain. And he articulated it so simply that I've never forgotten it, and I use it all the time. And he called it LTR, and it stands for like, trust, and respect. And he's like, I don't do business with anybody who I don't have that with. I just don't. And when you really think about it, you peel it away. Yeah. And we now, it's so embedded in our culture that my team, and we've had some projects that didn't work out so well. And if we really look back, it's because we didn't have LTR. We didn't have it.
Hmm.
We had and we had to be more opportunistic in the early days of our growth, right? Like we'll take any business we can get. And now we put new partners, new situations through a heavy duty LTR filter.
I
It
love
works,
that.
I'm telling you. Because when you feel you got to go to this meeting, but you got kind of a stomach ache and you don't really trust the guy, and it's just like it's not really. It could be somebody who's working, taking care of your kids, or working at your house or something. I mean, when you have it, the business flows more smoothly, the communication flows more smoothly. You can get through difficult periods, which we've all been through. And it's so great to see my team really, they've come to me often and said, Sarah, I know this deal looks good, but I tell you, I don't have LTR with this person. I don't want to do it.
Wow.
And it's great.
How do you quantify that and like do it? Is there like a checklist? Like, okay, do we like these guys on a scale of 1 to 10? Do we trust these guys on a scale of 1 to 10? Do we respect these guys? And then you step back and look.
We do. We haven't charted it like on a matrix,
Mm,
but we have the discussion, and we use situations and examples to illustrate why we do or don't. Right?
mm,
You know, um, in the courting phase of this, you know, possible partnership that we just went through, you know, they don't get back to us that quickly. They seem to want things that are unreasonable. They want us to give them all of our good work for free. Interesting. Um, we check references on new clients, obviously, as everybody should. So there are ways to kind of get a feeling, but it really is. Do you want to have dinner with these people? Do you want to have a beer with them? Do you want to? Could you enjoy sitting in a social setting with them?
mm,
Um, it's really, we're not perfect at it, but we've really used it. And if you really dig in and you look at situations and people and try to put it through that filter, you'd be surprised what you find.
yeah. Um, I want to go back to your that idea of true hospitality and as far as an experience within one of your properties. Um, Walk me through like so when you're taking on a new property, um, and if you can give me a specific, be as specific as you can. I know it's hard to do sometimes because you love all of your properties, like you love all of your children equally. Um, but like, which one of your properties do you think best example is, or it's just a shining example, maybe not best, but a shining example of a guest experience? Like, which property would it be, and kind of walk us through what like a guest experience that would be incredible.
Well, I'm definitely not going to choose who's best, right? Because I think all the teams are amazing and doing things very creatively and in their own ways, in a lot of in the Main Street way, but also in their own ways, which
Hmm.
we want to foster that balance of independence and also, aligning with our way of doing things. But I would say that most recently, our team at Canoe Place in Hampton Bays, which is an unbelievably special property. It is the newest for us when we say 8 months old, but it is actually on that site has been an inn since 1697. So it
Whoa.
is it is technically on the oldest inn location in America, and it's surrounded by incredible indigenous lands, a lot of revolutionary activity, and it's pretty incredible. So, in partnership with our owners, Greg and Mitchell Reckler, and an incredible development phase of getting open, we knew that we wanted to design. This is a luxury property. It's not a relais chateau today, but it is. We really spent months and months and months talking about what is luxury, like what is it really, and we have all the luxurious appointments and beauty. The place designed by Workstead, unbelievably aesthetically, right? Um, but we really spent time thinking about what is luxury. And yes, we have beautiful amenities in the rooms. Yes, we have incredible food and um, uh, beach service and all of these things that people can do and partake in and experience while you're there. But we came down to the fact that luxury, the essence of luxury as we were thinking about it, was recognition and personalization,
Mm.
right? At a high level. So I want to credit Mario, who's our GM there. He has built with his team an incredible. It's 20 rooms and 5 cottages. So you've got a pretty targeted audience there. But he has created the most beautiful and very genuine way of knowing about people who are coming, recognizing them when they arrive, asking them in advance what temperature they like their room to be, observing which side of the bed they sleep on, and doing the turn down to um, to reflect that. Um, Finding out their likes and dislikes and making sure the mini bar is stocked accordingly. Organizing experiences for them that are very personal. In the Hamptons, it's kind of tricky to figure out if
Mm.
you don't know the Hamptons. Um, and just spending time and listening and paying attention and 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 connecting in a very personal way. So I would say that in terms of bringing about this very luxurious, because it's unrushed and it's very thoughtful and deeply researched, that Canoe Place is doing a pretty incredible job right now.
Has Bashar stayed there yet?
No, I'm terrified of him.
No, the reason why I'm asking is
I know.
he often says like, why can't a hotel just know what temperature I want the room set at? So when I'm walking in the room, it's that temperature. So maybe
Yeah,
you have figured out like how to make him happy.
we just ask. We ask ahead of time.
Now he's got to stay there. Oh, I
Oh my
can't wait to
God. No,
send
I
this to
can't.
him.
I need to get through my first real season before Bashar comes. Yeah. Anyway, it's great, but but it's good because I mean, you want people to put you through your paces and give feedback and make it better.
Yeah.
And
On
so
the personalization side, I actually I was just at ILC out in Denver, and I met there was a one of the sponsors was called, oh my God, Henson Shaving. So they like basically they make these satellite parts, right? They make satellites or parts for satellites, but then now they take their like their machining capability for these precision things, and they make these really luxury razors that you put like an old school razor in it. And he was there thinking, oh my gosh, it would be really cool like if the hotel could engrave the guest's name or the hotel name on it, and it's like it's an investment, but it's a cool gift that you would give to someone who's staying there, but they would really notice it. It's got a nice weight, a nice heft. Like, are there any things from aside from the service side of this hyper personalization, as you called it, are there any kind of like gift ideas or anything that you do or have thought about doing that have really resonated well with your guests at any of your properties?
yeah, well, it's interesting. I come from the world of retail and branded merchandise, if you will. And I think we can do a much better job across all of our properties. And actually, I'm excited about a potential new advisory board member who has a deep retail background, who I want to stimulate some this in the next phase of our growth. But at Canoe Place in particular, we've been working with an incredibly talented branding company called Farabee Lane.
Hmm.
Yep, they're amazing. They're based in South or North Carolina, and
In the Carolinas.
so we yes, and you check him out. He's incredible. And so from the very beginning, we started developing products that um, we felt reflected the spirit of Canoe Place, but were atypical. So we started with a gorgeous Filson bag.
Mm.
And it can go on a boat, it can go wherever you need it to go, but it's a beautiful Filson bag with leather handles and canvas. And we branded it Canoe Place. And it was one of our opening gifts to press and PR and people. And it was amazing. People went crazy for it. Scott Williams, who is our amazing head of brand, he worked with um, John Darien, who's a beautiful,
Oh yeah,
you know, designer, to
totally.
create to create amazing paperweights. And you think, oh, who needs a paperweight? But when they look like this, I don't know if you can see it. This is Canoe Place,
Oh wow.
the historic image of. He made one for Red Lion, and they're not cheap. I mean, they're like, $100+ or whatever. They're so heavy and beautiful, and
It's a
they create
beautiful
this
weight.
sense of permanence.
Yeah.
Um, and when he brought it up, everyone was like, "Really?" And now people are crazy for them. They love them. So these are, and yes, we do all the other things too. One of the things that one of our team members did at Canoe Place that I'll never forget. She had a lovely couple who was staying for the first time, and they had a baby, brand new, with them, and they had such a wonderful time. And they said, "Oh, we really want to come back and like make this our place," which is what we hope for every guest at our hotels.
Mm.
And Molly spontaneously followed up. She had a beautiful quality little cotton onesie made for the baby with Canoe Place on it, and she packaged it up and sent it to them with a thank you note for staying with us. They freaked out. and they'll never go anywhere else. I mean, they probably will go other places, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that sometimes a piece of clothing or an article can resonate and be something that brings you back to that place. So
Yeah.
we're trying to focus on those kinds of
Well, I
things.
also love the idea of that idea of permanence and weight and heft, right? And especially when you look at one hotel that I did the math on the 16, 20, whatever, it's 320 something years old. And then Red Lion Inn is 250. There's this like, there is a sense of permanence with those places as far as even though one's new, one's not new. Um, I don't know. They're like these fixtures within the communities within which they lie. You know what I mean?
They are, and they are. That's why the stewardship of them and the keeping them relevant and keeping them thriving. You know, my grandparents bought this hotel that I'm sitting in 1968. It was going to be torn down, and it just the whole landscape of the Berkshires would be different without the Red Lion.
100%.
Canoe Place was also falling into the ground, and our partners bought it 15 years ago, and their plan was to do some residential because that's what they're great at. And the town basically revolted and said, "No, we need the Canoe Place, and we need it to be thriving." And little by little, they found a common ground and a way to get it done. So can you imagine? And people walking in are just their eyes are wide and they're looking around saying, "Oh my God, I was married here 50 years ago,
Wow.
and I used to work here at the front desk." Right, and it's
Wow.
just it's just remarkable. It's very moving. And what's great about Canoe Place in particular, and Red Line too, is that you have a diversity of guests that I love, not just culturally diverse, but also socioeconomically.
Mm.
So you have people sitting at the bar together. One guy's coming off of his construction job and having a beer, and the other guy's coming from his Wall Street job to his squillion-dollar house in the Hamptons. But they're sitting together in an environment that's kind of democratic, and
Yeah.
everybody's enjoying it. And I like that a lot. That's part of our mission too.
Are the, between the Red Lion and Canoe Place, are there any remnants that are or parts of that hotel that exhibit the permanence or that have been there since the beginning, or have they all been fully rebuilt and reconstructed?
Uh, at Red Lion Inn, after the fire, there are probably parts. There are some small parts of the foundation that are original.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Um, Actually, the foundation, a lot of it is. The body of the building is 1897, I want to say.
Okay.
It got rebuilt very quick. It got rebuilt very quickly, which is why you know I have the best structural architects and engineers working on this building because we need to. Um, but then at Canoe Place, what's interesting is I don't think there's anything that's pure to 1697,
Hmm.
but the building did burn. It went through a couple of iterations over the early years, but then it was in its heyday, um, and then it burned. 100 years ago, it burned to the ground,
Wow.
except for the fireplaces. So there are a couple of beautiful original fireplaces at Canoe Place that provide a kind of um, they're like the old redwoods, standing in the building, and they're really gorgeous. And
And
so,
original from 17th century?
well, no, these are original from 100 years ago,
Okay,
mixed
got it.
rebuilt,
Okay.
right? So they've, these places have all gone through a lot of evolution,
Hmm.
but what we lean on is the fact that we were still doing the same kind of business on this location continuously. It's always
Yeah.
been a place of gathering, place of convergence, a place of hospitality, a place of welcome,
Mm.
and we're just bringing it back. It's not like we're even it's not revolutionary.
Mm.
It's really great to see. It's one of the most rewarding parts of what we do. When we did a hotel in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which we don't manage it anymore, but we helped to create it and get it launched, and we managed it for 5 years, called Hotel on North,
I
and
know.
it's a beautiful hotel. And I remember when we opened, people coming in wide-eyed because Pittsfield had been a city that was, a little left behind after the
Yeah.
big industry left, right? and people were feeling not as proud of their city as they should. And so they walk in the lobby of this place and they go, "This is Pittsfield, right?" And
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
And Hampton Bays too. They're walking in like, "This is Hampton Bays? Whoa!" So it's when you see pride of place in people who live in the community where you're doing business. I also find that very rewarding, and it also helps your business. It's not even just a nice to do. It's like part of the business plan because you need the locals in the winter, and you need them to feel connected to what you're doing. I think to be financially successful also.
Yeah, and that goes back to that metaphor of mining where you've already struck gold, right? You're wowing your captive
Exactly.
audience and engaging the community that's around it. And that's one of the things I love so much about independent hotels is I think that look, all hotels engage the community in some way or another. Many feel like a spaceship that just landed there, but there's still some engagement. But on the
Hmm.
spectrum, I think that the independent hotels do a much better job, in my opinion, um, engaging the local community and and working with them to make it's an accretive relationship between the two.
That's a nice way to say it. It should be accretive.
Yeah.
And we work really hard, when it comes to, and I know staffing has been like this big buzzword for the last 2 years because it's got shaken up, right? And so our response to that, not only, and everybody wants to say, well, are you fully staffed and what's happening with staffing? And while the sort of staffing crisis was very real, I don't accept it as an excuse anymore because I feel like if you've doubled down on your culture, you've really looked at what it means to work in your place and that it's positive and rewarding for people, check, right? And then look out into the community to see how you can. We're doing this in Hampton Bays where we co-sponsor a hospitality academy with the high school where we're actually cultivating growing roots in that community and cultivating
Mm,
people and training them in hospitality so that then they can come and work for us and other people in the neighborhood. We have found that to be incredibly successful.
yeah.
And we've had to look at more creative ways of attracting people to work with us. And so far we're coming into the summer in a relatively good staffing position, which
Do
is
you have
kind of
something
cool.
wood to knock on right there?
I know, I know.
That's
I
great
know,
news.
but I shouldn't jinx it.
And additionally, like, okay, yes, they can come work with you, great. But also, like you said earlier in our conversation, working in hospitality at a young age will only serve you on whatever path you're going down or whatever path your life takes you. Um, so
Mhm.
in that sense, I'd love to kind of pull on that thread back to when you're 14 years old. I don't know if that's eighth grade or ninth grade. So maybe you're in high school. You're putting in some hours at the Red Lion Inn. Um, maybe what were you doing? Making beds, cleaning up, just doing whatever you
Yeah,
had to do,
I
checking
was
people in.
chambermaiding, as it was called
Chambermaiding.
back then.
Okay, so if the Sarah I'm talking to right now were to magically appear in front of the 14 or 15-year-old Sarah, what advice do you have for your younger self?
I think that it seems very basic, but I think showing up on time, sort of following through on what you said you would do, uh, working with people on a team in a respectful way, kind of covering those basics as you're growing up through your career, making sure that when you show up to work, that you're making it a better place in the
Mm-hmm.
way that you're behaving and interacting with people,
Mm,
and that I see it in my children, I see it in young people working here. Um, it is kind of mastering the fundamentals when you're a teenager, not not waiting for people to come to you to staying out of victim position, right?
mm,
Especially for women who are growing in this business, and there's you know I have so many amazing female colleagues in different parts of the business now, but um, but we're still not all the way there yet.
mm,
And I do think that there's a little bit of possibly um, that feeling of, oh, this is all happening to me. I can't be an agent in my own
mm.
outcome. That's what I would want to make sure I trained myself at 14 Um, and I wasn't I was someone who had to, we had a modern family, a kind of blended family. I had to do a lot of navigating between
Hmm.
different situations. But I think hospitality trains you to be able to adapt to people, to pick up on the vibe, to read a room,
Yeah.
which I also think is a great skill as you grow as a professional.
So as you were saying, just mastering the fundamentals, I just think back to that LTR with Warren Buffett. And also, I don't like UCLA as I went to USC, but Coach John Wooden, he was all like, he'd have the best players in the country. I think he's the most winningest coach in college basketball history. And when they would start as freshmen, he would focus on, this is the right way to put your socks on. Show up 5 minutes early. This is how you tie your shoes. Because it's really, if you master those real fundamental basic things in life, it's a foundation that will only serve you. And I get on my kids sometimes just about, look, show up get there 5 minutes early. Do this. Like, if you can't take yourself out of the game by just not doing the basic things that we all could do. And
Yep.
I think that that's really powerful. And you think about all these other matrices or this or that or strategies that we were talking about, but really it's like master the fundamentals. Don't lose
Master
sight
the
of the fundamentals.
fundamentals. Yeah, finish the job. Do it
Totally.
better than someone expects you to do. And I can't claim perfection even in those categories, but it's and I have, I look at my teenagers, and one almost is 21, so
Yeah.
no longer a minor, and they have growing to do, but I do see in them a sense of, like, this last summer, I didn't. There was no worrying about whether they were going to get on time to work. There was
Hmm.
no driving them because they overslept. There was no. So yeah, I could see it taking hold a little bit more, just that sense of personal accountability to the people who are waiting for you at work and
So that
counting
just
on you.
proves you're an amazing parent if they're doing that on their own now. You've done something right.
well, well, talk to my husband, and there might be a different response.
Well,
It's okay. They're doing fine.
yeah, no, they're doing
So
great, and you're doing amazingly well, and your expansion over the past 10 years and growth is just really, um, I don't know, it's just so nice to know you and see this success that you're not doing passively, right? You are actively doing it while mastering the fundamentals, but also, you know, laying out a really cool course. And it's an honor to have you here and have your time. So thank you so much. If people wanted to learn more about you or Main Street Hospitality or any of the properties, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
I think best way is mainstreethospitality.com.
Hmm.
Start there. And we're just about to renovate our website, and a new little brand refresh is coming. And, ping me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty good
Great.
about responding. And, I just, in closing, Dan, thank you for having me. It's really, this is the stuff that we should be talking about a lot.
Yes.
And I really enjoy it. And, I want to sort of say out loud how incredible my team is, the people who have helped me build Main Street.
Hmm.
I'm like display only at this point because they are really doing it. And I feel humbled by the fact that they're interested in the mission, or they want it to succeed. And we've been pulling in some really amazing people over the last few years. And so it's really them who are making this happen, so I can go on your podcast and brag about it.
Yes.
So
Well, it is them, but it's also, it's you attracting them as well, and what your teams are building, and it's all about the people, and you're pulling the right people towards
yeah.
into your orbit. So it's really
Well,
cool. So don't
well,
give
thank
yourself
you. Thank
give
you for
yourself
being in my orbit.
give yourself some credit, please. Please give
Okay.
yourself
All
some.
right.
But
All
I'm
right.
really honored that you've invested your time in this, and thank you. And um, thank you to all our listeners, because it's, again, like much in the way that you're humbled, it's humbling that the listenership and the engagement keeps growing every single week. So I know, like, I'm having great guests like yourself on that are sharing their experience, which only makes all of us better within guidelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to be sure to thank all the listeners, And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.